Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Oral Communication in Context. We are now at our second week, which is Nature and Elements in Communication. So, for this week, we will be differentiating verbal from nonverbal communication. We will also discuss examples of how verbal and nonverbal communication are related, and we will try to internalize verbal and nonverbal communication skills through daily interaction with classmates, teachers, and family members. So let's proceed to our second slide. So when a person tell that he is using verbal or non-verbal communication, so he is expressing himself, and that is communication regardless if that person is talking or making gestures. So words and actions alike are ways to deliver someone's thoughts, feelings, and that is a way of communicating. So we have different ways of communicating to other people, and we have the first one, which is the verbal communication. Verbal communication is perhaps the most obvious and understood mode of communication, and it is certainly a powerful tool in your communication toolbox. Put simply, verbal communication is the sharing of information between two individuals using words. Verbal communication is a powerful tool, and it's made even more powerful when paired with listening and nonverbal communication. So we have here verbal communication refers to an interaction in which words are used to relay a message. So for effective and successful verbal communication, we use words to express ideas which can be easily understood by the person you are talking to. So um, we consider such words such as appropriateness. So the language that you use should be suitable to the environment or occasion. We also have brevity. So you make sure that uh, those speakers who often use simple yet precise and powerful words are found to be more credible, and try to achieve brevity by being more direct with your words. You must also avoid fillers and insubstantial expressions which do not add to the message, such as I guess, and others. We also have clarity. So, clarity is the meaning of words, feelings, or ideas, and it may be interpreted differently by a listener. Hence, it is essential for you to clearly state your message and express your ideas and feelings. We also have here ethics. So, words should be carefully spoken and consideration of the gender, roles, ethnicity, preferences, and status of the person or people you are talking to. And last but not the least, when engaging in this type of communication, we have vividness. So, words that are vividly or creatively describe things or feelings usually add color and spice to communication. And if you are encouraged to find ways to charm your audience through the use of vivid words, nonverbal communication refers to an interaction where behavior. So we have here some things to consider when engaging verbal communication. So basically, um, while we typically focus on speech while talking about verbal communication, it's very important to remember that writing is also a form of verbal communication. After all, writing uses words too. So imagine for a moment that as a student who is struggling with material in class, rather than simply giving up, you decided that you're going to ask your instructor for the guidance you need to make it through the end of semester. Now you have a few choices for using verbal communication to do this. You might choose to call your instructor if they provided contact information, or talk to them in person after class or during office hours. So you may take a different approach and send them by email, or you can probably identify your own list of pros and cons for each of these approaches. But really, what's the difference between writing and talking in these situations? So we are now talking for the things to consider when engaging verbal communication. We have here the appropriateness, brevity, clarity, ethics, and vividness that we had discussed earlier. So we have here spoken versus written communication. We have formal versus informal, synchronous versus asynchronous, and recorded versus unrecorded. For the first one, formal versus informal, um, we generally use spoken communication informally, while we use written communication formally. So for the synchronous versus asynchronous, synchronous communication is communication that takes place in real time, such as a conversation with a friend. So in contrast, asynchronous communication is a communication that is not immediate and occurs over longer periods of time, such as sending letters, email, or even text messages. For the recorded versus unrecorded, written communication is generally achieved, archived, and recorded for later retrieval, while spoken communication is generally not recorded. So here are some things to be um, reminded of the spoken versus written communication. So what could be the benefits of spoken communication? So we have here some points to remember the pros of using spoken communication. So spoken communication can be a conversation, a meeting, or even a speech. It is also a powerful tool in that it allows for input from every part of the social communication model. You encode your thoughts into the spoken word and look to your audience to decode and take the message in. You can ask for feedback directly, confirm understanding of your message. Also, in a world where we do most of our talking by email and text, spoken communication is a breath of fresh air. Leverage the power of spoken communication to create relationships. So, by creating relationships, you can establish a rapport and sense of trust with your audience when you speak with them. Spoken communication allows you to bond on more emotional level with your listeners. Also, it makes it easier to ensure understanding by addressing objections and clearing up misunderstandings. How? So you can adjust your message as you communicate it based on the feedback you're getting from your audience. Also, spoken communication allows you to walk away from a conversation with a higher degree of certainty that your message was received. So, that is the verbal communication. Now we will try to differentiate verbal communication from non-verbal communication. So here, nonverbal communication refers to an interaction where behavior is used to convey and represent meanings. So typically, all kinds of human responses that are not expressed in words are classified as nonverbal communications. We have here examples such as stares, smiles, tone of voice, movements, manners of walking, standing, sitting, appearance, style of attire, attitude towards times and space, personality gestures, nodding, facial expressions, leaning toward the speaker to show interest. So these are some examples and some forms of non-verbal communication. Body language can reinforce your spoken message or it can contradict it entirely. So for non-verbal communications, we have different types and they have effects that can have on the success of your communication. We have facial expressions, gestures, proximity, touch, eye contact, and appearance. First, we will discuss facial expressions. So we have here some pictures of facial expressions. So be aware of your facial expressions when you talk, particularly and when you listen, because facial expressions mm, is not easy to forget. And the facial expression may have communicated different information and helps you to convey your message. You also have gestures. So when you speak, a gesture can make your message stronger. Pointing out some you want your listener to look at more closely is an example of nonverbal communication, and that makes your message understood. Motioning warmly toward a coworker who deserves special recognition, making a fist to show frustration or anger. These are some gestures that help further engage your audience when you speak. So as you can see in the pictures, we have some gestures here. A picture of a lady saying no or she is very disappointed. We have here a man who is making a hand symbol by using his hand and it is conveying by saying call me. We also have some hand symbols here such as thinking, peace sign, it's okay, and a symbol of saying your head is aching. So these are some of the nonverbal communications. We also have proximity and touch. So for proximity, this is how close you are to your audience when you speak, and it sends a nonverbal message. If your size is imposing and you leave a very small distance between you and your listener, it's likely your nonverbal communication will be a bit threatening. On the other hand, giving someone too much space is an awkward nonverbal communication that might confuse your listener. So we have here some pictures that conveys proximity. So we have here two co-workers with their distance because they are talking. And then we have here a lady who is a bit awkward because of his co-worker leaning towards him. We also have here a picture of a couple and they are distant to each other. It's because of a message conveying that the lady is having issues with his boyfriend or husband. We also have touch. So for touch, um, touch communicates affection, but it also communicates power. Shaking an audience member's hand, putting your hand on his shoulder. So these are some of nonverbal cues and it can affect the success of your message. In fact, when women touch a listener, it's often assumed that they're being affectionate or conveying empathy. But when a man touches a listener, it can be taken as a sign of communicating power or over dominance. You also have eye contact and appearance. For eye contact, making and maintaining eye contact with an audience when you're verbally communicating or listening communicates to the other party that you're interested and engaged in the conversation. Good eye contact often conveys the trait of honesty to the other party. And for appearance, your clothing, hair, and jewelry are also a part of nonverbal communication. If you put a dachshund pin on your lapel each morning because you have a pet dachshund, it's a dog, that says something about you as a person, meaning you are a dog person. You love dogs, you are attached to dogs, and you have a pet dog. So, similarly, the quality and condition of your clothing, how it fits, if it's appropriate for the season, all of these things speak non-verbally about you as a communicator. So be careful on your appearance and clothing because sometimes it is being misinterpreted by some other people. So um, for nonverbal communication, uh, I will be sharing you a myth, and it says that when you speak, only 35% of your communication is verbal and 65% of it is non-verbal. So that's not entirely true because so much depends on the context and situation. It is, however, absolutely true that nonverbal communication can make or break your message. Nonverbal communication reveals a lot about you as a communicator and how you relate to other people. It pays to be aware of the elements of your nonverbal communication so you can maximize the impact of your message. So, um, there are also mastery of nonverbal communication, and it is very important for several reasons. Nonverbal communication enhances and emphasizes the message of your speech, thus making it more meaningful, truthful, and relevant. It can communicate feelings, attitudes, and perceptions without using a word. Also, it can sustain the attention of listeners and keep them engaged in speech. And if you have an audience, it gives the audience a preview to the type of speaker you are. It makes you appear more dynamic and animated in your delivery, and it serves as a channel to release tension, and nervousness. It also helps make your speech more dramatic for you to build a connection with your listeners, and it will also make you a credible speaker. And by this nonverbal communication, it helps you vary your speaking style and avoid a monotonous delivery. So um, we have internalized the verbal and nonverbal communication skills, and we have differentiate the verbal and non-verbal communication forms. Now, on your handouts, you may see some activities, activity 1, activity 2, and I will just require you to answer activity 2. For the activity 2, in the instruction, it says that on the next page are various pictures with blank speech and thought bubbles. Fill them with conversations according to the body language and facial expressions you see from the people in the photos. So I have set an example already. So for activity 2, I have given an example, so kindly refer to the picture that I have shown in this presentation. Also, you may free to answer activity 1, but I will just require you to submit activity 2. If you have questions regarding this week or regarding this topic, please don't hesitate to ask me. You may reach me personally through my Facebook Messenger, or you may reach me personally at school. So for this week's references, you may try to read a teacher's manual for oral communication in context for senior high school. It is retrieved in a website at www.teacherph.com, Teaching Guide Oral Communication in Context from DepEd. We also have a link which is in your module, so kindly refer to that, courses.lumenlearning.com, and Business Communicating Managers chapter Verbal and Nonverbal Communication. Again, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask me. If you want to further learn more about week two, weeks two topic, we also have suggested readings. We have Oral Communication Context, a textbook for senior high school by Apolonio Joshua from Unlimited Books Intramuros, Manila. And we also have a link. N is collective.com English ESL worksheets, vocabulary, people, what are they saying? And the link is already in your handouts. Again, thank you once again for this week 2. We hope that we had already discussed and differentiate verbal and nonverbal communication, discuss how verbal and nonverbal communication are related, and I hope that we had internalized verbal and nonverbal communication skills through daily interactions, especially by watching this video. So before I end this discussion, I would like to give thanks to all of you and share a Bible verse from the book of Mark, chapter 9 to 23. Chapter 9, verse 23. Said Jesus, everything is possible for one who believes. So nothing is impossible from God. And if you have faith and if you believe that um, nothing is impossible, it will be truly given to you. Thank you once again.